Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our Get to Know program. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my cohort in crime.
That would definitely be me, definitely a cohort in crime, I might add. And today we've got with us Bob and Pat Gussin of Oceanview Publishing. And I'm going to ask you to bear with me a second because I'm actually going to read through some of the things. I know that this is not a comprehensive list. Some of the things that Bob and Pat have done, which make me feel like such an underachiever. But let's start with it. They both worked at Johnson and Johnson for over 25 years. They're both medical doctors. Bob was the chief scientific officer at J&J. Pat was worldwide vice president of consumer pharmaceuticals. And that was only the beginning of their lives. Then they went on to start Oceanview Publishing. They've both written novels. Pat is a New York Times bestseller. But they didn't stop there. They bought two wineries in New Zealand. When they founded Oceanview Publishing, it became one of the most prominent independent publishers in the world, quite frankly. And they've published over 75 authors and over 200 books. And, I guess in their spare time, they decided they were bored. They've volunteered at friendship centers for seniors. Pat has. They founded a library foundation in Sarasota County in Florida. Then they bought two book vans, the Gussin mobiles, and hired drivers to take books to underserved communities. And that wasn't enough. Bob joined the board of the Boys and Girls Club of Sarasota. And then they brought seniors to these underserved communities to read to the kids, which is just mind-blowing. So I got to ask you guys, what are you up to now? Because this is quite a list. And I know it's not even comprehensive.
It's been a challenge to try to figure out where we want to go now. I mean, obviously, we'd like to have a little more time to spend with our kids and grandkids, et cetera. We'd like a little more time to be able to travel for leisure rather than just work. But we're certainly not ready to, as the big R word, retire. Pat won't even use that word, so we don't say we want to graduate into something else. And we've given a lot of thought to different things. We can go and help people learn to read, do things like that. One of the things we settled on, which I think is sort of interesting, is to go to the senior center and help these people put together what we want to call their life book. And what that would mean is, they come with whatever background stuff they can, pictures, et cetera, et cetera. We'll help write the continuity into this, align the pictures in an appropriate way and all that. And our contribution will be, we will fund getting these bound and maybe, 10 copies made so they can give them to their family and friends, et cetera. So that's sort of what we're about. We're in the process of launching at this point.
So, we should talk a little later when we're done with our interview. I have a friend who's been creating an app for that. And so we should talk because there might be some synergy there between you guys and him and what he's doing. So, so we'll have to get further into that. I think what a wonderful project. I mean, it's
amazing. It's amazing.
And I remember many. I left out one really important thing about Bob and Pat. They have 7 children. How many grandchildren do you have? I mean, small minor details. On top of all this, raising 7 kids.
16.
16
Wow.
16 grandchildren. Oh my gosh. What a beautiful family. That's amazing. Amazing. Did you guys start when you were like 6 or 7? Was this like, how did you accomplish all this?
Well, Pat was 7. But I was
Great old Robert.
Well, I have to say, by full disclosure, that Bob and Pat and Oceanview have published all my Jake Longley series and a couple of other things, and so I've always been bound to them one way or the other. And such great people, and so much fun to know. And we've had some good times together over the years. But I know things have changed recently, and Oceanview you stepped away from, and I understand why. It makes sense, but you're going to be missed.
Very
So
much.
what do you see Oceanview down the road then, this baby that you created and you've kind of put it out to sea? What do you see?
Well, it's hard for us to know exactly what's going to happen. We have to step aside from it. We turn it over to Lee, who's our publishing manager, Lee
It was
Randall.
great.
So he owns it now. And, Lee doesn't have the kind of financial backing we brought to it. So he's going to have to handle it a bit differently. He's got to
Right.
make a living from it, et cetera, which we fortunately didn't have to do.
Right.
But it's going to go on. I think he's going to pick and choose what he and a couple of his colleagues who are staying on,
Right.
who work with us, want to pick, and they'll go their way and publish as many books as they can. And as I say, it'll be a little bit different.
Well, that's understandable.
And Doug, I mean, there's something to say with bringing in some youth to the organization. There really is. I know that readers in our mystery thriller genre tend to be a little bit on the older side, a little bit, women who are in their 50s and 60s, 70s. But we need younger readers coming in, and I think that is what they are going to bring to it. I think,
Cool.
and Faith Madsen is an incredible editor. She is really talented. She's been doing publicity for the length of time that she's worked with us, but she is a very, very well-trained editor. And
Good.
I think that she'll bring a different eye. She already, sees things that maybe we would miss, that are nuances in today's world. And so I think it'll be a real positive thing.
Yeah, I think the time was definitely right. I mean, we put a lot of time into it. We put a lot of ourselves into it. It's time to let somebody else have that opportunity.
But Doug, before you introduced us as your publishers, but I don't know if you can see them back to us, but I went through yesterday and tagged all of your books. And there's a lot of them.
Bless you.
I don't have a brand new one yet, but
I still have a romantic interaction with Nicole.
Yeah.
You and everybody else, it seems like. Yes. Everybody she seems to be the one everybody likes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about your new project. I mean, that sounds great. I remember many years ago, they were doing video things like that where we're going around to older people and they were getting their background. And I think that's so important because people our age have stories to tell.
That's right.
And because life experience and those things disappear. If they're not written down, they disappear. And there's too many great stories out there. So God bless. That's a great idea.
Well, one of the stimuli to us was that my dad, who wasn't an outgoing person at all, but he did take the time. He decided to record his young life, which was incredible because he was orphaned at 13 years old, left with an 11-year-old sister, no family, no parents, in Russia, in Kiev.
Wow. Yeah.
And through friends and neighbors, etc., they were sort of underground railroaded across Russia, across Europe, ended up in England, where my aunt, who was she was 11 years old at the time, got the flu or measles. She got measles. And so they wouldn't let her leave. So my dad and my Aunt Alice spent 6 months in the UK before they were allowed to come to the United States. And they had no relatives, no guidance there. They had relatives waiting here in Detroit, but they didn't have them there. But they survived it. So, it shows sort of the capability when you have to do something.
There's so many people that have stories like that.
Right.
Yes.
But the ironic thing is, like, we're publishers, and so you would expect that we would know how to put a book together and how to actually do this, but really not so. We would get our PDFs the way we want them, and then we send them in, and they get all typeset, and they come back, and then they get printed, and so we personally have not been involved in that end. So now we have to really dig in and figure out like how to actually get it. And so, you know, to your point, Kathy, about programs to do this, apps and such. My daughter-in-law gave me an app sort of like, maybe like the one you're talking about, maybe not, but, and it's very, very interesting and it's very good, and I can do it, but I don't know that these people at the Friendship Center who are just can't face a computer could do it.
And I'm not sure that it's an app that he's doing. It's some kind of a program to put it all together and organize it. I'd have to put you three together and have you guys talk about whether there's synergy there or not.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because I don't want to misspeak and mislead as to what it really is, because I don't know exactly.
But it is striking though, the lack of computer ability.
Yes.
With people who are in their 80s and you know,
I struggle with that with my dad. I completely understand that. But also to your point on this project, I think it's fabulous because, for example, I had my great-grandmother until I was a senior in college, and now I really regret the fact that I wasn't old enough to have the wherewithal to ask a lot of questions because they immigrated, she and who then became my great-grandfather, when they were 13 years old. And they immigrated right before World War I with the Kaiser. And, you know, you don't send your children overseas by themselves without a big story in the backdrop. I mean, who sends their kids on their own way at 13, you know, across an ocean? So I know there's a big story there, and I never thought to ask it. And I really, that story is now lost. So what you're doing, I think, is so valuable. Not just to the people who tell the story, but to the families who want to understand their history and how incredibly brave and courageous their family members were. I mean, we just aren't put in that circumstance as Americans that often. However, there is a lot of families who are trying to immigrate here who have really, you know, courageous stories to tell.
Yeah. And what you describe as a universal problem at the age where we have our parents available to do something like that, we're not at all interested in doing that.
Right.
That's the by the time we mature enough to say, hey, this is important, want to do it, your parents are no longer there. So
exactly,
it is a big issue. And to be able to try to glean that information from people who put it together, I think is something that should be done.
I was fortunate. My dad lived to 97 and he was a great storyteller. And so, you know, I was 70 before he passed. And so he would tell stories, and I know all his stories upside down and backwards because I heard a lot of them a dozen times. But, you know, everything from growing up on a farm in Mississippi to World War II to, you know, starting his first job. And I mean, all these things, you know, and I'm thankful for that because it does give a continuity and a history of people, not just families, but people. And we're losing that, unfortunately, and what you're doing is changing it. On the other side of the coin is that the kids nowadays can't write cursively, so you know, we do have that on.
I don't even know if they teach that anymore.
They're starting to again because they realize brain development is so important if you're cursive writing rather than typing on a computer, you know.
Yeah. So I have a question for you guys as publishers all these years, and we have a lot of writers and aspiring writers who tune into this channel. What advice as publishers would you give to new authors that are just up and coming?
Don't give up your day job.
Yeah.
Well,
and
you know,
don't give up don't give up your writing.
Right. I think what they have to understand is it's a tough world. You've got to keep doing it. Keep in mind that when you write, you write primarily for yourself. And that's what people have to understand, that you're writing to put in words on paper what you really have done, what you've dreamed of doing, all that stuff. So first of all, understand that you're writing for you and you've got to love it and appreciate it. Secondly, understand that a very small percentage of people who decide to write make a living from it. So I'm serious when I say don't give up the day job. I mean,
Exactly.
you know, you have to have some other means of income, because this is a game where success is few and far between. So,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I think the most important is understand you're writing for yourself, because then you have a product that you love. You
Right.
can look at it, you can read it, you can print 10 copies and give them to your family, et cetera, whatever you want to do.
But on the other hand, things have changed so much. When we first started, the self-publishing this route was not very attractive and not well used, and you were at the mercy of finding an agent, and then the agent finding a publisher, and that's not true anymore. Anybody
No.
can affordably muster the resources to have an excellent book with a great cover designer and with an editor, and get that book out there. And then there are a lot of programs, publication programs, that are not outrageously expensive. So you can do it on your own now. And
Yeah.
there are so many huge success stories of that happening. So
Well, I don't
think
know.
right now, the situation is better than it used to be.
Oh, it absolutely is. We happened to, a very fortunate thing happened to us. We were looking to get into the publishing business at a time when the big publishers got into a battle with Amazon about who was going to print
Ebooks,
Right.
yeah.
books. And they decided they weren't going to put their books on Amazon. So we jumped in and we said to Amazon, you can charge whatever you want. You can charge 10 cents, you can charge $1 or whatever. You can have our books. So our ebook business just skyrocketed because it was in
Oh,
the
wow.
absence of competition. And when they came back, we lost some. I mean, you know, they took over some of it, but we never dropped way down. We always stayed with a very healthy ebook thing. So it's just fortuitous that that happened. I mean, we didn't plan it. We weren't really looking for it, but I don't think we would have been where we ended up in the publishing business if that had not happened.
And I think you can tell, Doug, from being one of our authors, that every month we put out our Amazon deals.
Yes,
and it's
absolutely.
still very good to us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I say us, the old us.
The old us.
The old us, yes.
Well,
Well, you know, it's interesting, you know, with AI and all this now, you know, if you say, write me 50,000 words of a mystery that, you know, involves X, it'll spit it out in 2 minutes. You got a novel, you know, and that's the scary part. And just a few months ago, Amazon put out a rule change that you can't publish within 3 books a day. And I'm thinking, well, what was going on before?
I mean, oh my goodness
You know,
gracious.
you can't publish but 3 books a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's like,
AI may author a
Exactly.
but then try to read it, because
yeah,
it's not
exactly. But
anything that you'd want to read. It's
but
terrible.
it's amazing.
The AI
You still need a
things-
human.
Yeah, the AI things we've looked at, or some of our authors have tried, the number of errors in them are incredible. I mean,
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
it doesn't even
Mhm.
have any relationship to what the story is. It's just,
Well,
Right.
and that brings me to a point that I think, you know, and I'll see if you agree with this. I suspect you probably do. Is, for example, you can have AI, you know, put out a 50,000 word story for you, but if you try to read it, it's going to be errors. It's not going to make nonsensical. I mean, it's just all kinds of terrible things. But if you have people putting out these books, I mean, it's just crazy. But one of the things I always tell new writers is, if you're going to self-publish, you have to get a good editor, not the high school English teacher,
Mhm.
not your, you know, mother's best friend, not an actual professional editor, because once you publish that book in your name, it's out there forever. You can never bring it back. And if it's not been edited, you may very well be sorry one day, because all good books have more than one brain attached to them that has worked on that project to make it the best product it could be. So, and when you're a writer, I know myself, you can't see your own errors. So I just always advise, you've got to get an editor. I mean, what do you say to that?
yeah, you're absolutely
Absolutely right.
We were told a long time ago, there's a term, and we love it because it fits. It's poison the well. Once you poison the well, once you put your manuscript out there and it's lousy, you can't come back because you've had it edited now and all, because everybody has seen it. The reviewers have turned it down.
Right.
they're going to see, something, they'll start reading it, and it won't take long to realize I've read this before and I rejected it, and they're going to reject it.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful what you put out there.
And when you send a book into a publisher, it better be as good and as polished. There's a false belief out there that, oh, I'll send in a rough draft and they're gonna love it and they're gonna fix it. That is not
No, that's not gonna happen.
You can't believe how many people submitted to us and said, this is just a rough draft of it. I said, hey, this is the one shot you're going to get with us. I'm not going to So you better send the best you have and hope that will carry the day for you, because don't send me something and say, this is just rough. I've seen my ideas. I'm going to rewrite it. I don't want to do that. I don't have time to do that.
But to your point, Kathy, I can remember too, incredible manuscripts, incredible stories that were submitted to us that they were just dynamite. The fact that I can remember them now, almost 20 years later, but they were so poorly written, we just had to turn them down.
Yeah,
if they
isn't
had
that a shame?
given that to an editor who just would have restructured those sentences and made sure that one thought led logically to the other, and just made sure we knew who was speaking and things like that an editor does. Oh, it would have made such a difference.
Yeah, I think a message that should hopefully get to aspiring writers is that most books are turned down by publishers not because they don't have a good idea and a good theme, but the writing is so poor. So you really have to make sure that you have it's the best shot you're going to take when you submit that from a writing standpoint. There are a zillion great ideas out there. I mean, we look at books and say, I only wish this were written well, because this is a fascinating story. I mean, it really is. But, the days when we first started, we literally rewrote books for authors who want to be authors.
It takes a lot of time to do that, though.
Yeah, but you can't do it.
Absolutely.
We snap aside.
Yeah, you can't. Too time consuming.
Right.
Well, let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about your wineries. Tell us about how that came about and what's going on there. Yeah.
I love wine.
Well, that we're a little bit impulsive, so we'll start. We, as things worked out with Johnson & Johnson for various reasons, good technology, tax breaks, etc., I ended up starting a research lab in Australia. And we did a whole lot of really good stuff. Some of the early days in blocking genetic messages, we were right on top of it.
Wow.
So it was an exciting time, and I built that lab up to 100 people. So it was a pretty, respectable laboratory over in Australia. So when we retired or graduated, as Pat likes to say, when we graduated, we decided we'd take a trip over to Australia, and Pat had not spent much time there, and I wanted to show her around, show her all that stuff, introduce her to the people I had over there. So we went over, but she said, we have time now. And a lot of people tell us that New Zealand is really a beautiful place, and maybe we could sort of shoot over there. Well, shooting over there is 2,000 miles. It's not exactly. But we ended up going to New Zealand. Well, we stepped off the plane. First of all, when you come into New Zealand, the land, you fly over just a bunch of vineyards, and they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And the plane landed. We get off the plane, and Pat said, she looked around and she said, I want to be in the wine business here. And I said, that's a wonderful thought, but what the hell do we know? I mean, we certainly. So anyway, it turns out that one of the guys in my lab was from a family of major wineries. And so they were pretty well known. He had stepped out and gone into biotech, so he's working for me. But he said, well, I'll introduce you to my sister, who is sort of, on top of the wine business and all. So he did, and one thing led to another. And we ended up a month later, we went back to Australia and to New Zealand, and we bought 2 vineyards in New Zealand. and neither had produced yet, but one was like 6 months away and one was pretty early on. And the guys we bought them from were having some financial difficulties, so it was a pretty good deal to buy them. And so without knowing anything, we got into it. But it turns out that the guy who was the winemaker, who was one of the part owners that we bought out, stayed around, and he was very interested in having all of us learn more about winemaking.
Mhm.
So when we were there, like we'd be there for 5 or 6 weeks. Every Saturday, he would bring in, like one Saturday, bring in a hydrologist. The next time, a vinologist. All that stuff. So it was like going back to school. I'd go out and we'd spend like 3 hours out in vineyards, and these people would show you how to water, how to do this, how to do that. So it was incredible. It was a no credit course, but boy, was it
Wow.
good. So I learned a lot. Pat, listened. She didn't want to go to that, but she listened to me and she learned a lot. And we ended up then buying a couple of vineyards. And
then we had a long-term deal, so we sold all of our grapes every year to Villa Maria.
yeah, it worked
which
out
is
well
a big
because
winery there.
we
and
hired
so it was really good.
we hired the Villa Maria people to manage our vineyard. So we
Oh,
figured,
wow.
if they had skin in the game, they wanted
Mhm.
to make everything good. So they gave us a 10-year purchasing contract. So you could hardly lose. They're managing our vineyard, so they're going to try to make it good. And they're guaranteed us they'll buy all of our grapes for 10 years. So
That's fantastic.
It was a no-brainer. So we sort of became general lady farmers.
I understand. I mean, New Zealand I lived in wine country, Napa, Sonoma, about 30 minutes outside of there for about 30 years. And so I'm passionate about wine. It's such an amazing art and science, I believe. But New Zealand's really well known for Sauvignon Blanc. Is that what you've been producing?
Well, we had
Yes.
our first vineyard was 70% Sauvignon Blanc, 30% Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Second vineyard was a little more 50-50, but always Sauvignon Blanc was the leader. But what we did was we ended up with a sort of modest block of Pinot Noir. And it turns out the New Zealand Pinot Noir is totally different than American Pinot Noir and incredibly good. But it's a very tough grape to grow, so it's very limited amount. So we do sell Pinot Noir as well through Villa Maria. And I say we don't any longer. 2 years ago, we sold the vineyards. But for all those years, and we still do have Pinot Noir on.
Is it
Amazing.
a big Pinot or a lighter, more French style Pinot?
No, this is a
it's
pretty full
deeper.
bodied. It's somewhere, I say it's
Love that.
between an American Pinot and a Cabernet.
Mhm.
So we
Nice.
put it right in that block, and it's beautiful.
And that is the most difficult grape to grow is the Pinot.
It's very finicky.
And the nice thing is it's sold here in the United States all over. It's sold in Publix markets, supermarket.
Well,
here.
Where can I buy it? Is it under Oceanview still, or how can I? Because I'd loved it, or Villa Maria.
It's Villa Maria.
it would be Villa Maria. Yeah, we call our vineyards over there Oceanview, but
But the wine
at
was
the end of the
Villa
day, everything gets sent to the
Villa Maria. Yeah.
the winery, and they do their
Good.
mixing and matching and all of that.
Maria. One of the
So
most
it would be Villa Maria.
one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had is walk into their winery, look at a 50-foot tall cylinder of holder, a wine holder, and on the bottom is a little faucet and a little tag that says Gussin's. So I said,
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
But I think you would be maybe a little bit surprised by how mechanized they are over there.
Sure.
I mean, everything is machine picked. They pride themselves in that. And all the huge steel tanks and the vineyards themselves tend to be a lot larger than the boutique ones out, on the West Coast.
yeah.
I feel that it's a different experience.
Yeah, our vineyard, we had 80 acres. I mean, you can't find anything near that out in California.
And we were small.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
we were
compared to
small,
them.
right?
Mhm.
Wow.
You
Wow.
go to Marlboro and they're just miles and miles and miles.
But it's an incredible place. I mean, the vineyards are one thing, and watching these things beat the vines and shake the grapes off, and then an automatic thing loads them into a truck, et cetera. It's all motorized, but there's still a lot of sort of country type stuff. Like the biggest traffic jam I ever run into is 1,000 sheep crossing from one side.
That took a while.
I've sat for hours. I've had ice cream melt.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh.
But they are, you'd appreciate this, Doug. They are data driven with their wine too. They go through a lot of testing, and they don't they were the first ones who went to all screw caps, and they tested that every way.
And they took a lot of heat because a lot of people said corks are better. It turns out corks are worse. Corks change the taste of the wine. Screw caps don't, but those stuff they stuck with it.
And you can
and by
have
definition, they're
10%
porous.
lossage too with
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it was, and we go over there and we go into the quality control lab at our winery, and it's just like the labs we used to have. It's sort of they're always surprised when we know something in the quality control thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
You felt at home there.
Too.
That's so cool.
Well, I tell you, this has been fabulous talking with you and seeing you. And I hope that we get to see you at some conferences or somewhere. I mean, even though you're not, going to be in the business, we hope you show up there someday.
Yes, absolutely.
We're going. We plan to. So we will do that, and it's just been. It was a great ride. We don't intend to get totally away from it. We want to stay close.
Good.
We're keeping our home in New Zealand, so we plan to spend about 6 to 8 weeks a year over there.
Nice.
And although we don't own the vineyard, we're right next to it. So
Oh, how lovely. Well, Bob and Pat, it's been great to have you. We'll have to have you back. It's so much fun to interview you guys. You're
Absolutely.
just fascinating. And I'm going to ask all of our viewers to please click that thumbs up like button. It helps us with the algorithm to get this interview out to as many people as possible. And please subscribe. And that also helps us bring more of these interviews to you. And check out the Outliers Writing University, where we are teaching writing. And, maybe we can drag Bob and Pat into that. We'll have to have a discussion later. But thanks again, Bob and Pat. And
thank you, guys. Thank you. And good luck with your new project.
Thank you. Always fun. Take care.
All right. Take care.